Ladies, gents, and all other friends, we got 'em. Salutations, everyone! My name is Pietro. Welcome to today's video, and you have already seen by the title, this is a 5-0. I am recording this after the fact, and this is actually the first 5-0 that I've fully recorded in the channel since I started, and that actually makes me really happy. So, just a little bit of background before we start. This 5-0 was actually happening in between the rounds of the challenge. I played the challenge that was on Friday, the 6th of February, and the challenge started at 11 a.m. for me, and it was 6 rounds. I played the exact same 75, and I got absolutely demolished in the challenge. The video is going to come out still at some point. It is just going to be a little harder to edit, and I'm going to give priority to this video because it is much more important, right? Much more interesting also. So what is happening here is that I recorded the matches, but I wasn't doing any talking or gameplay in between them or as the games were going because I was more focused on the challenge. So what happened was like, oh, okay, my first rounds in the challenge finished really fast. I started a league, and as I always do, I started recording the games that I was just playing in between the rounds of the challenge. Turns out we did much better in the league than we did in the challenge. Who knows why? Maybe we got luckier. Maybe all the good players were in the challenge and there was nobody there to just absolutely demolish me. Regardless, it is pretty fun. So in the video, I'm going to be doing some voiceover commentary after the games. And yeah, that's going to be that. I think the games are extremely interesting to watch. Most of them have pretty good, cool interactions. We see a good variety of decks as well. And I'm very happy with that and the way it turned out in the end. So this is actually the first time I'm going to show you a blue-black deck for the Steelfin combo here. It is basically the same thing as the blue-red one. The difference is that I am playing Fanatical Offering in the main deck. Let's make these a little bigger, right? I am playing 3 Fanatical Offering to go alongside a pair of Cryogen Relics. I'm only playing 3 because playing 4 when you don't have the full play set of like Ichor Wellspring and whatnot can feel a little clunky, especially in a deck like this where you don't really want to be trading your artifacts for other artifacts. You want to be going up artifacts in the early game, and Fanatical Offering is not great at that. But it does mean that sometimes you need that little refuel with the relic, and you can do that. Or you can just sacrifice a land, a Thopter, or whatever. I am playing a pair of Nile Spellbombs. I can't really do Relic of Progenitus here because I am playing Blood Fountain. Obviously, it's a nuts card. And I'm also playing a Singleton Green Bauble. And I'm doing that because I have a Trinket Mage in the deck still. So the Trinket Mage package here is actually 3 Thopters, a pair of Nile Spellbombs, a pair of Blood Fountains, a Grim Bauble, and a Witching Well. And this configuration served me pretty well over the game. I am playing 16 lands with a Singleton Basic, 5 Banishing Knack effects, and then I have a pair of Metallic Rebukes, a pair of Mirren Spice, very important in this deck. I think Mirren Spice shines here much more than in the blue-red version, and the Trinket Mage that I mentioned alongside all 4 Tooth of Chisgoria. So this version of the deck infinitely wins via combat. You do need to attack and connect with your opponent. The star of the show, obviously, is Refurbished Familiar, because this card is absolutely insane, and you are going to see that the only reason we were able to 5-0 is because of this card. It is crazy, especially when you can do something like Banishing Knack your Wayo or your Spy or whatever, and then bounce the refurb, pay a black, replay, bounce the refurb, pay a black, replay, and you absolutely demolish your opponent's hand. It's pretty good. And then the whales. Sideboard-wise, I have 4 Blue Blasts and then 4 1-mana instant speed counters magic, 2 Dispel, 2 Turn Aside. Turn Aside is basically here for Dust to Dust, although it does also help against things like Cleansing Wildfire and, you know, spot removal in general from like removal pile decks, gardens, and whatnot. Dispel is just a great card. Maybe it should be in the main deck. I just haven't found out the correct configuration yet. A pair of duresses, really important. I probably should have played 3. I started on 3 and I cut down to 2 because I really wanted to play 3 green baubles and 2 tithing blades as a little bit of like post sideboard removal suite against things like Raleigh Red, Elves, Fae, Terror, and etc. And yeah, that's gonna be it. So I'll see you guys in the matchups, and hopefully you enjoy. This is a blast of a league. There are a lot of plays that made me really happy that I got to them and that I got to showcase them in the videos. Oh, by the way, I am playing 3 Ornithopters now. So I started on like a bunch of 0 drops, and then I slowly went down. I believe the last build I was playing like 4 Thopter, 1 Phyrex and Walker, and in this one I'm playing just 3 Thopters. Yeah, that's it. Again, if you want to see videos like this early, check out the Patreon to support me. No, wait, the videos are not on Patreon. Forget it. If you want to check videos like this early, go to the YouTube membership section. If you want to support me extra, go to the Patreon. If you don't want to do either of those things because they cost money and I get you, just leave me a comment, subscribe to the channel, like my videos and whatnot. All right, I'm really tired. It's been a long day. I've been playing a ton of Magic. Let's get to the games. Okay, welcome to round number 1. We are on the draw against Appa72. This is actually already game 2, because in game number 1, my opponent mulliganed to 3 cards. They really didn't do anything, and then they conceded. So that wasn't even really anything to watch, and I even forgot to record it. But yeah, they just started mulliganing very aggressively. I thought they were on Spy. They weren't. And as soon as I saw that they were on, like, walls, they played, like, a Mana Dork. They were, like, on Spy Elves, so then they played a Mana Dork. They cast a Winding Way, and the Winding Way got them like 1 creature, and then they just conceded. So this is going to be round number 2, and you are going to see that this is also going to go by pretty fast. I have a really good hand here because I have Tithing Blade and the ability to cast them. So my opponent is going to go Tinderwall on turn 1, and since Tinderwall doesn't die to Green Bauble, I'm just going to play Mist Vault Bridge and hopefully snag something on turn number 2. My opponent actually just goes right into X-Bane Guardian without having the second land drop, and then I just am going to Tithing Blade them. Then they take their next draw, and supposedly without finding a second land, they just straight up concede. It is what it is. They kept a risky hand. We had the answer, and we got there. Let's go to round number 2. All right, welcome to round number 2. We are here on the draw against donnetokyo. After the very quick game, after the very quick round 1 that we had, I decided to just send it back, even though we were still in the challenge and in the same break. I had just gotten absolutely destroyed in the challenge. And right away, we can see that we are against familiars. I don't think this matchup is necessarily great or bad. I think that the biggest advantage that we have is that Familiars is a deck that taps low often. So if we are able to have 1 Metallic Rebuke at the right time, we are definitely going to be able to just run over them. And here they play a Merchant Scroll, a card that I haven't seen in a long time, since the High Tide days. Igor Grecia, my good friend, Familiars all-star player, really likes the Merchant Scroll in the deck to be able to fetch out some silver bullets sometimes, or just get a card value. And they go for a Meeting of Minds. We go turn 2 Refurbished Familiar, and they discard a Snap, which is strange to me because Snap is overall a really strong card in Familiars. But then they go Seagate, and it looks like they don't have a bounce land or a turn 2 or turn 3 Familiar, which would be really good. So on our turn, we just take our draw, play our Mirror and Spy, pass the turn to our opponent. And I'm just going to play the Mirror and Spy here because my opponent didn't do anything proactive and they discarded a Snap. So I just wanted to have the Mirror and Spy out in play. And there's the Metallic Rebuke that I talked about. I also think it's really important for us to be able to clock our opponent. So attack for 3. And since I have a basic, I need to pay for the first Frogmite. And I'm just going to deploy the Frogmites here. So on our... Wait, I actually went too fast. Come back. So on our opponent's turn, they go for a Sunscape Familiar. And since I noticed that they were pitched on mana, I immediately went for a Metallic Rebuke. And it just worked. On my turn, we draw a Thoughtcast. Absolutely great. I also believe that I was supposed to attack with the Frogmites last turn as well. I believe I didn't because the Green Bauble would have been able to snag one of those creatures out. And that is what I'm going to do here. Unfortunately, I didn't find a land drop, but it is what it is. This deck operates decently well as soon as you have like 3 mana. And then we get to kill the Seagate. I wanted to kill the Seagate because of ephemerate reasons. And you can see that on my opponent's turn, they just have another Seagate Oracle. Really good for them. And here is one of the things where I talked about in the Decktech. Fanatical Offering is a great card, yes, but it can definitely get stuck in your hand when you draw multiples, which is what is happening here. And here we draw a bunch of cards and still miss our land drops, and I'm just going to go on the offensive, continue clocking, continue attacking, but unfortunately, it's only like 3 damage a turn. My opponent's turn, they have another Godfarer's Faithful, and that puts a dampen on our offensive. They're going to cast a cantrip. Here we find yet another Thoughtcast. We get to Thoughtcast and still continue to not find more lands. But in regards to resources, we are flush. We have a lot of good things here. The attacks continue. And then post-combat, I'm going to play a Steelfin Whale, see if that one resolves. Again, the Steelfin Whale here is just another body that attacks. The Refurbished Familiar is the one that I am the most interested in, actually. Opponent discards another Snap, so that's the second one already. And they do have the third one here to bounce my Mirran Spy. They do this at the end of my turn so that they can steal Meeting of Minds with the mana. And also because I am forced to discard. They put me at 8 cards in hand. I don't think it's that much of a problem, but maybe I could have played an Ornithopter to try and avoid that. Now, keep in mind, Familiars is a slow deck, and it is a difficult deck to play. And my opponent is playing somewhat slowly here. The Murmuring Mystic definitely helps, yes, but I don't think at any point in the game they are super ahead in terms of like, oh, I'm super concerned and I want to like concede the game now so that I can have more time to play my games later on. I know that my deck has a lot of resource. You can still see how many cards I have in hand. So I am going to continue fighting this battle here, even though my opponent has already stabilized, because if they misplay or if they like maybe tap too low and don't have a piece of interaction, it is really easy for me to just combo them from out of nowhere, especially since they don't have removals. And here I get to resolve an IO Spellbomb, which I think is really, really good because 3 snaps gone already means that my opponent's interaction is going to be really, really limited. Again, they only play like 4 snaps and then like a pair of Prohibit, sometimes an Essence Scatter in the main deck. And yeah, my opponent is going to Mold Drifter. They actually play a Mountain, which was really unexpected for me. And at the end of their turn, I am just going to pop the Nile Spellbomb so that I can see if I find the piece of interaction that I want. And now here is where it looks like it is pretty obvious to me that I should go for the combo. I don't have protection, yes, but having the Mirran Spy with the Steelfin Whale means that I can bounce my opponent's entire board, even if I don't have the Tooth of Chisgoria to actually kill them. And bouncing my opponent's entire board here would very likely just be lethal over the course of a couple turns. Unfortunately, my opponent has the 4th snap, so that is real bad for us. I don't have any sort of protection, and since I played the Mirran Spy, I couldn't even sacrifice the Steelfin Whale or anything. And yeah, that one hurt. I thought that this would be my chance, because if I bounce all of their things, I immediately get in for 10 damage. And then next turn, I can just sort of do the same thing again. Like, get in again, maybe find another thing, draw a bunch of cards. Now, their Ephemerate is going to come back here, and they are fully out of the constraints that they had in the early game of not having enough mana, not having cards. They are stabilizing here. Again, snaps are all gone. So maybe I get lucky and I just draw another one and I can combo them. But then they are going to find the Sunscape Familiar. Our turn's going to roll around. I drew a Blood Fountain, crack a map. And you can see me here doing some math to try and think about how much mana I have access to. So like if I play the Steelfin Whale and I start sacrificing stuff and draw the piece that I need, can I still kill my opponent? They have an Essence Scatter, but I have another Mirren Spy, which basically means that since my opponent doesn't have removal, I can just do a bunch of crimes as soon as I find a Banishing Neck. On my opponent's turn, unfortunately, they find an Archaeomancer, and the Archaeomancer picks up a Snap instead of picking up the Ephemerate, which leads me to believe that they already have another Ephemerate in hand, which, yeah, it's real bad and sucks. Now, I think this is one of the most crucial turns in the entire league, because I think I make a huge mistake here. So I know they have a Snap, meaning that if I Retraction Helix, they just bounce my thing and it doesn't work anymore. You can see me pop the Graveyard to try and see like how much mana I have for Blood Fountain shenanigans and whatnot. I am still attacking at this point, because if my opponent wants to trade with my Refurbished Familiars, I'm okay with that. I can get them back, and I can immediately deploy both and force my opponent to discard 2 more cards. You can see me crack a Blood token there to get a Tooth of Chisgoria. Or rather, I didn't know it was going to be, but you know. And then I think here is where I make a mistake, because opponent snaps my Mirren Spy, and I have a bunch of choices about what I should do, and I make the wrong one. I Fanatical Offering my Mirren Spy so my opponent doesn't get the mana immediately and I can draw some extra cards. But if I had instead cast the Retraction Helix on any of my creatures and the Tooth of Chisgoria, I actually have double Spy plus Bounce Effect plus Tooth, which is instant speed, and that would allow me to bounce my opponent's entire board, and I only realized that after I already passed the turn. Because with double Spy, you have 2 triggers, and Tooth of Chisgoria is instant speed, so while the Snap is on the stack, I could have done all of that. Like, bounce the Tooth, recast it, 2 untaps, 1 untap bounces one of your permanents, the other one bounces the Tooth, and then I could have done the thing and bounced my opponent's entire board. Unfortunately, I don't see that in time, and I am actually going to forward a little bit here, because the rest of the game is really, really grindy, and my opponent draws their pieces of interaction, and I end up drawing all of my teeth, which don't help a ton. Again, my opponent's clock is very slow, and I have a pair of flying blockers, so it is still possible for me to draw like insane and get through, like on a moment like this where my opponent is low on resources. I still had another Nile Spellbomb that I could use to remove their last snap and then try to win the game that way. But my opponent is definitely just overwhelming me here. And again, you can see the difference in clock. I am 4 minutes ahead of my opponent, and it is still game number 1. So my opponent does the thing, I eat some of their birds, they keep doing their thing. They have another prohibit for the refurb that I draw. And obviously this is one of the problems, right? The Frogmites are not great against this board. Now, looking at it from this perspective, maybe I should have just played the Frogmites and started attacking, because having triple Tooth of Chisgoria means that I could maybe snag one of my opponent's creatures when they were not ready, or if they blocked badly or whatever. I don't think it would have made much of a difference here. My opponent just has infinite birds. And indeed, a few turns later, my opponent actually has lethal, doesn't attack properly, which gives me yet another draw step, but it is not going to be enough, and I am just going to die to their birds on turn 15. Now, for the sideboard. I was actually going back and forth if I wanted Turn Aside or not, because Turn Aside is really good if my opponent is playing Dust to Dust, but if they are not, it is only good for snaps. I ended up cutting some of the lower impact cards, so like Cryogen Relic, really, really good, but unfortunately really slow in this matchup as well. So I brought in the Dispels and the Turn-Asides and the Duresses, and I cut the Bauble, Blood Fountain, one of the offerings, a Thopter, and a pair of relics. I just really want to be the combo deck, because I am going to win via combo here. And by the way, 6 minutes ahead of our opponent, you can kind of see where this is going already. So we start off on a bridge, and our starting hand is actually really strong because I have double Familiar and I have Protection. Witching Well here doing a pretty good job as just a little bit of card selection. Our opponent starts off on a preordain, goes top bottom. Drawing another land here is absolutely great because I really want more mana. And Refurbished Familiar is the card that I want early in this match, because stripping resources away from my opponent while still being able to attack is really good. Our opponent this time has the turn 2 familiar, or rather turn 3 familiar, but they missed a land drop, which means that it is definitely time for me to be attacking. And I think I might have made... Oh, no, never mind. No, yeah, I have made a mistake here, because I should have probably cast the Thoughtcast pre-combat, because if I did hit a Tooth of Chisgoria, I could have killed my opponent's Sunscape. I end up choosing to go for the Dispel instead, but with my opponent having just 2 lands, it is really unlikely that my opponent is going to do something crazy here. I could have just gone for like Thoughtcast plus Refurb. Regardless, we go for the Thoughtcast now, draw even more mana, but double Dispel is obviously good. Our opponent is still blocking the Frogmite, and here they are going to attempt to Meeting of Minds to draw 2, and I just immediately Dispel because they are stumbling on land drops, and I am just trying to kill them as fast as I can here. They go for an Archaeomancer here, which is, like, I can't do anything about it. But they don't have blue mana, and even, like, snapping a Refurbished Familiar is not the best. So they end up going for the Meeting of Minds yet again. And then on my turn, I draw Metallic Rebuke, which, again, as I mentioned, is really good. But I probably shouldn't have attacked with the Frogmite this turn, because I believe if I kept it up, I could have played Mirren Spy and held up Dispel and Metallic Rebuke. Yeah, you can see me realize that here, where if I play the Mirren Spy, since it's not an artifact, I can't do the whole thing. Our opponent attempts to Ephemerate, which we immediately counter. They go for the Meeting of Minds yet again. The Godfarer's Faithful is a problem here, because if they start hitting too many blue spells, it is going to get difficult for us to get through. However, as I still have 4 power worth of flyers, I don't want to counter this. I want to hold the Rebuke for something really important. And here we find the Nile Spellbomb, obviously great. We even have the Rebuke to protect it. Go Spellbomb. Opponent is going to Meeting of Minds yet again. And then I have to decide, is it now the time to shoot this Metallic Rebuke or not? I end up going for it because opponent has only 2 cards in hand. And the way that they are at 6 life means that it's a 2-turn clock. Also, this is the spy that I should have played much earlier, because I had that turn where I attacked with the Frogmite for no reason. So opponent plays a second Archaeomancer. It's always sort of a guess. Overall, I believe it is always better to pop the Graveyard with the Archaeomancer on the stack, because if they have an Ephemerate, they can't just like Ephemerate to get something back immediately. Here we unfortunately miss, and their last card is a spell that they can cast, so they can cast that, Archaeomancer comes into play, and then they do the thing. But it's not even that bad. Like, snapping a Mirren Spy is okay. It's mostly so that they can gain some life. They hit us for 1 because they need to attempt to win the game at some point. We draw a banger in Thoughtcast, and the Tooth of Chisgoria here is excellent because it transforms this into a 2-turn clock yet again. I can hit them for 5 now and then 5 again next turn. You can see that I've been holding the Frogmite in hand. It is because I don't think it matters much for me to play it or not, in the sense that, like, if our opponent, the amount of blockers they have is big enough where the Frogmite is not going to get through. And if I drew a bounce effect, the Frogmite with the Mirren Spy is an extra trigger, which can definitely come in handy. Drawing the Refurb here just seals the deal. I can just attack and then do the thing with my opponent post-combat if I need to, discard their last card. So here they're going to snap the Mirren Spy, which means that they go to 5, but then I just tap the Tooth, and they are still at and I deal them 5 damage, and they die. So, going into game 3 here, I'm feeling pretty confident. I am 7 minutes ahead of my opponent on clock, and again, Familiars is slow. I think that my opponent probably should have conceded this game much earlier than they did, but, you know, it's their prerogative to do that or not. I end up bringing in the Tithing Blades this time on the draw, because I do think over the course of that game, I realized that the Tithing Blades are only really bad when my opponent has Murmuring Mystic, and that's not going to happen every time. And sometimes the Tithing Blade early gets rid of the Familiar or whatever else. This hand is actually pretty good. Having the Duress and having lands and things to do with them is great. The only thing that is missing is a clock or refurbs and whatnot. And there we find a Frogmite, which is sort of a clock. And then here I need to decide, am I going to duress on one or am I going tap land? I end up duressing, and we find a hand where my opponent has the Mystic and a God Pharaoh's Faithful, but then their only business card for now is a Preordain. So I'm just going to take that instead of going for the Ephemerate, which is the higher power card, but I just don't want my opponent to get off the ground too quick, like find a Familiar or whatever. We play a Blood Fountain, play a Frogmite, and here we are holding up Metallic Rebuke, and I am going to hold up Metallic Rebuke until my opponent casts that Murmuring Mystic. I know that it's coming, and I am not going to get got the same way that I got game one, game one. Here I can just immediately crack a blood token. I'm not super worried about mana. If I hit like my 4th land drop, I'm good. And here's the whale. And again, I do have the tooth in hand, so as long as I find a bounce thingy, I am good. So on my end step, my opponent goes for a snap on the whale. I am honestly not even that scared of it. Like, sure, you can do that, but unless you have something really good to do, it doesn't much change anything, and they didn't use the mana for anything. And here's the 4th land, but they don't play the Murmuring Mystic. So I can just replay the whale. They go for the Essence Scatter. And again, I could have countered here, but Murmuring Mystic is just such a nightmare of a card that I end up holding it in hand because I cannot let that thing resolve at all. And here I get to drop the tooth, which means that I get to start clocking my opponent for 3 and still hold up the Metallic Rebuke. I do believe we win this game off the back of that duress early on because it showed me that the Mystic was already in hand, so I couldn't really get too cocky and like trigger happy and just shoot, like counterspell the first thing that came. I really needed it to be the Murmuring Mystic. We just drew a Helix, which means that we just attack, deal 3 damage, our opponent finds a Mole Drifter, and we know they have the Ephemerate, so they're gonna draw a billion cards. Really, really good for them. But again, I have the Helix in hand, and my Blood Fountain just gives me back the whale right now. We are going to attack with both here. We know that our opponent is not going to block with the Mole Drifter, but it means that I can Tooth of Chisgoria here and snag that God Pharaoh's Faithful with my Frogmite, which is really, really good. I don't want extra big butt blockers in play, and the life that the Faithful gains is definitely relevant. There's the Ephemerate again. So opponent has a bunch of cards now, up to 8 in hand. They finally find their Familiar. But I have a pretty respectable clock here. The fact that I have these 3 creatures with double tooth means that blocking is really awkward for my opponent. And they are just going to chump block with the Mole Drifter. But they have yet another Ephemerate. They do go down to 10 life here, which means that they are getting pretty low. Ephemerate rebounds, opponent draws yet another million cards, plays a Seagate Oracle. But at this point, I am like 7 minutes ahead of them on clock. They don't have a real clock in play, and they are at 10 life. So I don't think the situation is going to be great for them. And yeah, they go up to 10 cards, have to discard 3. We draw the Nile Spellbomb, which is obviously good. I really want to get those cards out of my opponent's graveyard. And I do believe I make a mistake here where I should have just cast the Retraction Helix first instead of playing the Spellbomb, because if my opponent didn't have an answer, I could have gone for lethal right here, and the way that I did it is really weird. But still, I'm able to eat one of the Seagate Oracles, deal some damage. However, I do forget to activate the Tooth of Chisgoria on my whale. So instead of going down to 6 life, my opponent is going to go down to 7. And there's a Ghostly Flicker to save their creatures. And yeah, that's sort of going to be it. My opponent's going to draw infinite cards, and they are going to time out a few turns later. They kill my whale, but they have 7 seconds left on clock, and that is it, and we win the game and the match. All right, welcome to round number 3. We are here on the draw against Essenza, and we open up a hand that I am very happy with. We have our colors, we have refurb and thoughtcast for value, and our opponent is immediately on gardens, which means that the cryogen relic and the refurb are gonna have to do extra work here. This is probably my favorite match of the whole league because you can just see how strong the card draw and the refurbished familiar are going to be. So opponent starts off on an IO Spellbomb. We have a Blood Fountain here, which is obviously going to be great. So we get to refurb. Refurbing on turn 2 feels so good in this deck. Our opponent immediately kills the refurbished, but it's honestly okay. We got our 2-for-1 there. Immediately cycling the Troll of Khazad-dûm, getting the Haunted Mire. And again, here, interaction is going to be the name of the game for our opponent, meaning that we just want to draw as many cards as we can and keep our things working. I just go for a Cryogen Relic here because I don't think holding up Metallic Rebuke is going to do a whole lot, and I want to have the Relic in play if I can. And here our opponent just passes the turn without making a land drop, which is really suspicious for me, meaning that if they are just keeping and not even cracking the spell bomb or anything like that, they definitely have something. So I just got to deploy the Thopter and the Frogmite here to continue attacking our opponent, or start attacking our opponent rather. And here is where they make the play that I think probably decides the game. They go for a Pulse of Murasa on their Troll of Khazad-dûm on my end step. And knowing that they are struggling with mana and that I probably just want to clock them here, I am going to counter this very quickly. 6 life is a lot of life, and I just don't want them to continue to hit their lands. They end up finding more mana off of an Ichor Wellspring, but that's not that bad. I can just very quickly crack the Relic to draw yet another card, and it is the Whale. So we have the combo. Now, with our opponent having 3 cards in hand, it's really unlikely that it is going to just work, but I am going to get rid of a Tooth of Chisgoria here just to take that immediate redraw, and it pays off because we find a land drop. Now, you can see here how having multiple black lands, like only black lands in the deck, can affect us. And I also think I make a mistake here because I attack and I don't play the Tooth of Chisgoria. I think I probably should have just gone for it, like play the Tooth, pump your Frogmite, get your damage in while you can. And that situation here is also very interesting because our opponent casts down the Whale at the end of our turn, and in response I crack the Blood Fountain. So either they can leave me with a Whale in the graveyard, but they pop their Spell Bomb and they don't draw a card, or they let me get my refurb back and then they can do the thing later. They end up choosing to sacrifice right now because if they let me take the refurb, they're gonna have to discard a card anyway. And here is where we steal the game, because our opponent has a Thorn of the Black Rose, which, yeah, having the Monarchy is really, really good. Unfortunately for you, my Ornithopters are not 0-powered creatures because of Tooth of Chisgoria. So I can just go for it here. Like, I can play a Mirren Spy, see if opponent wants to do anything about that. And now I can taunt them. So, like, I can go for the Retraction Helix. I have the combo. The combo is available to me. And if they don't have anything to do, I get to just kill them. And they go for the Snuff Out. Now, if they had gone for the Snuff Out on the Ornithopter, things would be a little more difficult. And I wouldn't have been able to kill them right now, because I would have had to like bounce the Thorn, attack, and then they could still chump with the plant. However, with us having the Tooth here, I am going to attack and I am going to steal the Monarchy. And I don't know if you have ever played with Gardens or against Gardens. They are very good at securing the Monarchy once they have it, but they are not great at taking it back. You can even see our opponent reading what the Tooth does here. Then we attack, we do the thing, and our opponent had already spent their Snuff Out, so we just take it, and we are now the Monarch, and we have lots of blockers right here, right now. And this game is basically going to spiral out of control in our favor because our opponent is not going to be able to take the Monarchy back, and we are just going to be trading with them, like sometimes 1 for 1, and sometimes they get to draw some extra cards. But honestly, it is not going to be enough. We are just drawing 2 cards a turn at a minimum, and then we have the Thoughtcasts and the Fanatical Offerings and all of that good stuff. They do attack here with the Thorn. I decide to just jump with the Ornithopter. I did consider double blocking and trying to kill it, but if opponent has a removal, it's just abysmal for us. All right. And opponent finds a campfire, which is actually somewhat annoying here because it means that my clock is going to be heavily reduced. However, just having the monarchy over the course of a long time is going to make a difference. I get a little bit scared here because opponent is able to Spinning Darkness my creature, meaning that I only have 1 blocker, but luckily we are able to very confidently find a Refurbished Familiar. I wasn't worried for a single second. And then that draws us into another Refurbished Familiar, which allows us to draw yet another card, so that's pretty good. 1 mana, 2/1 ETB draws a card with fly. Yes, please. Also Cryogen and everything else. Thoughtcast Offering, Nile Spellbomb, everything is working out very well. I am just going to attack for 2 here because when opponent attacks with Thorn, I want to be able to block with a Refurb and pump it with the Tooth, so that we can actually trade. And here we go. We trade with the Thorn. Opponent defiles in response because they don't want to lose their only creature capable of attack. And I'm going to skip ahead a little bit because this game is just going to completely devolve into us absolutely burying our opponent. So we are able to tap down the Thorn, not tap down, but like stun the Thorn with the Cryogen Relic, draw a bunch of cards, and then here when my opponent pops the Lambas, I just exile it because I want them to have as few like good draws as possible. And I also don't want them to have like another Spinning Darkness or whatever that they can top deck here. And yeah, a few turns later, we just completely take control of the game. 8 cards in hand, clocking for 5 a turn, a bunch of other creatures available to us. And our opponent continued to fight very late into the match here. Like, I honestly thought that they would have conceded much earlier, but not really. So we are now on turn 11, and I've been having a hard time killing my opponent again because of the campfire, because it basically transforms like my 4 damage a turn into like 2. But now it is just way too much. They can chump with the plants. I have 10 cards in hand currently. And yeah, there's a hit for 5, down to 3, no creatures, no nothing. I had like Crypt Rats in the back of my mind, but I just had so many resources that honestly it didn't much matter. Even if our opponent tried to wipe my board with something, I had like Metallic Rebuke, I could bounce my creatures back. This is just a really drawn out game, but truthfully, our opponent could have conceded 10 turns earlier and saved some time, and it would have basically been the same thing. And there we go. So, sideboard-wise, which I think is the part where we need to be the most careful. Duress is definitely a thing that I want because I need to know what our opponent is going to have, and I also want to get rid of any potential like artifact hate cards or whatever. Green Bobo is not going to be great, obviously, so that can easily come out, and the Dispels definitely come in along with the Turn-Asides. This is a matchup where Turn-Aside and Dispel basically have the same text, which is to give one of our creatures hexproof. And I am going to keep this hand. It looks a little iffy, but I don't really want to mulligan to 5 against Gardens. And at least I get to keep like Tooth plus Retraction Helix, and I have the Duress, which can be really, really important. Being able to at the very least peek into what our opponent is planning to do. And here they go with the Nicor Wellspring. If they had started on an Oof, turn 2 would have been really rough. Luckily, they didn't. Now, drawing Tooth of Chisgoria, not great, not really what I want to do. And here we see a hand that is literally 4 removal spells and nothing else. So, with this many removal spells, I am going to go for the Tithing Blade because Tithing Blade is the one that has the highest upside, meaning it can kill a creature and can still be a clock draining for 5 every turn. So I don't really want to have to deal with that. And since we don't have any sort of like tokens or anything, and I cut 4 Frogmites, I definitely don't want to have to deal with all of that. So here's something funny is gonna happen. I draw the 3rd Tooth of Chisgoria, and when I say funny, I mean sad. because Tooth of Chisgoria is not great in this matchup. Obviously, I want them to like contest the monarchy and be able to combo our opponent and just clock them in general. They are also permanents, which is good. But I just draw all four of them. And by this point, I am already very much considering just conceding to save time and go to the next one. Our opponent cycles for a Witch's Cottage, which they don't even play, meaning that they are just going to be guaranteed to have a Troll of Khazad-dûm next turn. And then when I draw another Dispel, I am just like on the verge of, because I have nothing going on. I'm missing my land drops. These Tooth of Chisgoria don't do anything. It's not great. Opponent puts the Troll on top. I play the Ornithopter just in case I can like have a repeat of last game where our opponent goes for like Thorn of the Black Rose and I can somehow steal the Monarchy. But then I remember that opponent has 3 removal spells in hand, one of which is completely free. So I draw 1 more land, black mana. For a second, I consider if I want to like bounce the Troll back to hand, and then I just decide that it's better to just give up and go to the next game and save some time for that one because it can definitely go long against this deck. First hand has double Duress and a Refurb and a Metallic Rebuke and a Whale. Basically everything that I want. My biggest question here is, do I go Duress turn 1 or not? And I decide to go because I would rather do that in case opponent has something like Garden into Troublemaker Oof. They have the Oof, but they don't have the Garden. And then I decide here that I need to either take the Offering or the Duress, because I can take both of the Wellsprings. And if I take the Offering, opponent can then Duress me. But what I end up deciding is that if they know I have a Metallic Rebuke, they are not going to go for something like Troublemaker Roof or Fanatical Offering when it's not safe. So the first one, I'm just going to take their Duress, which forces them into like a Swamp plus Troll of Khazad-dûm cycle, which is what happens. And they actually just played the Nile Spellbomb that they drew. And then here I just go for the second Duress, and the second Duress I am going to take the Fanatical Offering because I don't want my opponent drawing that many cards for free. This also means that they now need to cycle the Troll to be able to play their second land drop, and I get to just untap and have Metallic Rebuke plus Refurbished Familiar available, which is obviously great. So play the Refurb, they discard a Snuff Out, that is not gonna do anything here. And I actually decide to play the Whale instead of anything else, because if they go for the Troublemaker Roof, it means that they would have to sacrifice their Nile Spellbomb for no value, and I really didn't think they were gonna go for that, and in fact they don't. They try to find their next land drop. But now I have double protection alongside a 5 damage a turn clock, which is really what I want to be doing here. So opponent's gonna take 5, and I can hold up both Rebuke and Turn Aside. And again, opponent has discarded the Snuff Out to the Refurbished Familiar, so I know my Steelfin Whale is very likely safe. They just immediately crack the Spellbomb here, try to find a redraw to get some better tools. And now when they do go for the Troublemaker Roof, sacrificing their Wellspring, I can just counter that. For a moment, I was even considering if I wanted to counter it or not, but then I thought that they could exile my Refurbished, and that would actually cut my clock significantly here. And now we draw a Helix, and this is probably my favorite play of the whole league. I know that this is gonna work because unless our opponent has like double Snuff Out, in which case I'm fine trading 8 life for my Whale. But you can see me doing the math here of like, how many times can I replay this Refurbished Familiar this turn? And for a second, I even like contemplated if I was gonna do it or not, because if I just go for it, there is a chance that like I'm not going to be dealing that much damage here. And I was also thinking like, okay, am I going to deal 3 damage, but then I get to bounce the Refurbished one last time or not? So I'm just gonna go for it here, and then I'm going to bounce and replay my Refurb 3 times. And yeah, you can see that after I did the thing, I decided to go to combat. Not the cleanest, but it's fine. So we swing for 2, drop our opponent to 13, and then we're just gonna wreck their hand. Bounce, replay refurb, opponent discards a swamp, we do the thing, bounce again, discard yet again. Now, I could have stopped here, and if I did stop here, I should have attacked then, but I honestly didn't really know how the mana was going to work, so I decided that instead of dealing 3 extra damage and holding up turn aside, I was just going to bounce the refurb. So I cast the refurb 3 times, and I ended up with the refurb back in my hand, meaning that I could just replay it yet again next turn. Now, here opponent draws a Thorn of the Black Rose, which honestly is kind of scary. I'm tapped out, I couldn't protect my creature or anything like that, and it is very possible that my opponent can like block, trade, draw a removal spell, kill my refurbished familiar, and now they are the monarch. We find a fanatical offering, which I do want. Gonna keep that one. And then it takes me a while to decide if I want the offering or not. I end up deciding that yes, because it is card advantage. And I actually just go for the attack here, knowing that we are going to trade, but I don't want the Thorn to stay in play. So my opponent does draw 2 cards from this monarchy, but then my refurb comes down, I get to tax them yet again. They draw a Defile. Luckily for us, we have the turn aside to protect our refurbished familiar. They just play the land that they have, and this is their last chance. They get to draw a card here, and if it's not a removal spell, I'm going to take the Monarchy from them and have the Fanatical Offering. And then in the end, we do take the Monarchy, and then the game is just going to spiral. Very similar to the previous one. I can even crack the Witching Well here, so I'm gonna go from like no cards in hand to like 4 cards. And I find a Mirren Spy, opponent duresses, and this is actually funny. I end up deciding to cast the Fanatical Offering because there's a chance that I draw something better and that my opponent misses, and I end up finding the spell and Retraction Helix, which are both insanely good. Opponent is going to decide to take the Refraction Helix here. Oh no, wait, actually, I think it's the Dispel. I remember that they tank on this for a while. Yeah, they take my Dispel. They play the Campfire again. I don't know if this card should still be in my opponent's deck. It doesn't seem great against me. But yeah, now I am just going to absolutely pull ahead. I have a bunch of sources of card advantage. I could go for the Witching Well. I can play the Mirren Spy. I end up just cracking the map to increase my clock a little bit, and I believe I should have done that a turn sooner, actually, which I didn't. But we find a Blood Fountain, so even if our opponent clears our board, we can just rebuy some of our Whales or Mirren Spies. And I'm just going to skip ahead a little bit here because I don't think it's that interesting, honestly. So our opponent, after a few turns, they are able to draw some extra cards because of a Fanatical Offering, but they are just not going to have enough here. When we took the Monarchy, our opponent was 6 cards deeper in their deck than we were, and now we are just ahead of them. And then here we find the Tooth of Chisgoria. Opponent has no cards in hand, so this is just lethal. We just do the Mirren Spy self-bounce thing. We can even take the plant token out of play, and then we just go Tooth of Chisgoria, and our opponent will die. We do the loop a couple times to show our opponent that it is indeed infinite, and we got it. 3-0. Let's go to round number 4. All right, welcome to round number 4. We are here on the draw against hyuma. I am going to mulligan this hand pretty aggressively, so we already start by mulliganing to 4 cards. Yes, really. I'm just going to keep here a hand that has 3 lands and a Steelfin Whale, and I'm going to pray that that is enough. And we're going to see what happens. So my opponent kicks off with a Voldaren Epicure, and at this point I'm praying that it's Raleigh Red and not Madness, because Madness has much more removal. And it is indeed Raleigh, and not only that, it is Raleigh, but our opponent is missing a land drop, which is great news for us. So our opponent doesn't have even a second land, but they are attacking us for 5 on turn 3 off of a couple of Tomb Raiders, which is really aggressive, but I am able to play like a Frogmite and a Steelfin Whale here, and now, unless opponent has a Bushwhacker this turn, I feel we are in a safe spot. And they actually go for a Synthesizer, and they do find a Mountain here, meaning that they are now a little bit less stuck. And they take a while here deciding if they are going to attack or not, but they do come in, and I could trade my Frogmite for one of the Tomb Raiders, but I decided that I just want to keep it and get as many creatures off play as possible. And they just play another epic here. I think that attack is actually not that great. My opponent pushed 2 points of damage, but they lost 2 creatures in the process. And finding the Tooth of Chisgoria here is pretty good. Means that I can't play another Steelfin Whale and still hold up Fanatical Offering, possibly on the Tooth itself. And I even swing here because depending on what my opponent does, I can Fanatical Offering the Frogmite or a land or the Tooth and untap the Steelfin Whale. So in case my opponent went like land, burning tree, bushwhacker, I could still have 3 blockers. And opponent finds a Rand's Resolve, which is going to give them a land and a Lightning Bolt. The Lightning Bolt here, not really that great. They could Lightning Bolt my Frogmite if they wanted, but that's not going to do much. And again, I am at 8 life. 8 life is pretty close to dead. And you can see here at the end of turn, I stop for a moment because I'm considering if I want to Fanatical Offering or not, if I just want to untap, or if I want to Offering, what do I want to sacrifice? Because if I sacrifice the Tooth and I top deck the thing, I don't have the combo anymore, so I'm just gonna go for the Frogmite. And we do find the Helix, which is the win, theoretically. Opponent can have Galv Blast, of course, or Fire Blast. So I try to go for the combo, and opponent does have the Fire Blast, which actually means that I was down to 1 life because opponent could have Lightning Bolted and Fire Blasted me, and I would have died if I was at 7. I don't have blue, so I can't Metallic Rebuke in response, meaning that I just need to let this happen. And then in retrospect, I thought that I probably should have cracked the map first to prevent my opponent from being able to make that play. And I was even like, oh, I should have done it first, and would it have worked? And spoiler alert, it would have. There was a Nile Spellbomb on top, so if I had done it in the previous order, my opponent would have had to 4-for-1 themselves because they needed Fire Blast plus the Lightning Bolt that they had in exile. But now the situation is still pretty tricky because I have a Metallic Rebuke but no blue mana. So it is really possible for my opponent to just untap and kill me here. And you see that they go for the Lightning Bolt at the end step. They play a Percussionist, which means that I am going to fall down to 3 life here, conveniently within reach of a Lightning Bolt. But they don't have another land. They did have to sacrifice them all, and I just top deck the Retraction Helix. So we mulligan to 4 and we still won. Really lucky for sure, but that's why you play to your outs, right? And then our opponent is just going to concede here. Sideboard. Green Baubles are going to be coming in. Duress is going to be coming in. I want to be able to... no, not Duress, actually. The Green Baubles and the Turn-Asides are going to be coming in. No, wait, not Turn-Aside. The other one. Dispel, yes. You can see me go back and forth here again. I am going to bring in all the Baubles, and I believe I cut a bunch of card advantage because I don't think I need that. I just need to be able to stabilize as soon as possible. And I think that this spell is likely better than Turn Aside overall. I also cut the Trinket Mage because it is just really, really slow. And the Witching Well because I just want to go fast. And this hand is absolutely bonkers. It's a banger of a hand. I can even decide if I want to kill the Epicure on turn 1 or not, because I can just play Seed of the Synod and hold up Blue Blast to see what happens. I could have gone for the Green Bubble play here, but I know turn 2 is the spike turn for this deck, and I just immediately snap off that Blue Blast. No fear, no questions. It is definitely the correct play, even if Burning Tree Emissaries just theoretically a 2/2, it's not. It can come alongside the Raleigh at the Hornburg and things of that nature. So yeah, the Blue Blast is basically insane there. Now I do take the chance to play the tap land here, and I still hold up Dispel, and you can see that the opponent did have the Raleigh. So if I hadn't countered the Burning Tree Emissary there, they would have been able to Raleigh a turn sooner, and then I would have had to counter the Raleigh, which would have been like a whole thing. And here I can just make a pretty sweet play. So I'm going to kill the Voldaren Epicure because the tokens can get bounced by Retraction Helix. So the Retraction Helix here can even be the like a pseudo removal spell. I mean, a bad removal spell, but anything that keeps you alive against red is really good. And the Refurb here takes another card. Opponent has to get rid of a Pyro. and they go for another rally here. And then I have to decide if I want to block or not. But if I block, my Retraction Helix doesn't work. So I just accept that I'm going to suffer and I take 4. And then finding the Frogmite is excellent. So I get to just play that, and I get to hold up like Helix, Dispel, or another one of those. Opponent goes for a Galvanic Blast on my Frogmite. Definitely don't want that to happen. Frogmite as just a 2/2 blocker is too valuable here. But opponent does get to go for a Goblin Tomb Raider, which means that I am just going to do the play that I mentioned. I'm going to trade with the Tomb Raider, and I'm going to use Retraction Helix as just a unsummon targeting my Refurbished Familiar so that I can get rid of one of those tokens permanently. Opponent with 2 cards in hand, we are at 9. Ornithopter means that I have an extra blocker, so opponent can't really attack anymore. They do draw the Synthesizer here, which is a thing that I can't really interact with, unfortunately. Finding them another Tomb Raider. So now, here I can take 2 and fall to 7, which is definitely scary. Or I can use my Helix to do the thing and like block, bounce, trade with the Tomb Raider. I decide to just hold and crack the Grim Bauble, which finds me the Steelfin Whale, which is the piece that I need to combo. So I'm just going to play that. And with a Dispel in hand, I feel like that stabilizes me pretty well. Here's a Bushwhacker, but it's much less scary when I have a Whale in play, which is just an excellent blocker. So opponent can swing out. And then here I'm going to think for a bit about if I want to sacrifice the Ornithopter for 2 points of life or not. And I end up deciding that I don't want to lose it. I would rather keep it because it's a thing that I can use to bounce. It can block on like following turns. The Vault of Whispers means that I can attack. So we do the thing, attack, play the Vault, give Pseudo Vigilance. We are going to fall down to 4 life here, which is super scary. So we are currently dead to Fire Blast, but we find a Thoughtcast and we find the Tooth. And the Tooth is lethal because I can just use it to give Ornithopter infinite power and just smash my opponent in the face. And they didn't even have a Fire Blast to fight here, so I am just gonna kill them. And that's it. We are now 4-0, and I'm gonna leave you guys with past Pietro, the Pietro that actually recorded the last match, because, come on, I was 4-0 and I had just gotten crushed on the challenge, so I wanted to feel alive a little bit. So enjoy. Hi, welcome to the last round of this league. As I probably told you guys in the recording, I wasn't actually talking because I was sort of playing the challenge in between the rounds, or rather I was recording this league in between the rounds of playing the challenge, and I got crushed in the challenge, as you guys probably saw, but I am now 4-0, which means that this is, yet again, an attempt at 5-0ing with this weird whale combo deck. I've gotten pretty close a few times and haven't been able to do it, so let's try now. This hand is honestly pretty good. It is only missing a Whale or a Mirren Spy, and even without that, I just have the option of going Refurbished Familiars for a while, which I will definitely do against this kind of deck. So I do want my Familiars to resolve, meaning that I'm just gonna start deploying them right away. So if this could be either Terror or Fae, or not. Okay, well then, all right. There's a Striped Riverwinder turn 2 because I helped them, obviously. So I guess I need to find out how much stuff is my opponent dedicating to this. Okay, they're discarding a Cast Down. The Striped Riverwinder is obviously good, but if the rest of their hand is kind of trash, I'm not that worried about it. Now, I cannot bounce this out of play, so I am going to need to be a little worried about that. A 4-turn clock without any other type of protection is not that scary to me. The question then becomes, what else does my opponent have? I don't really care about the Bojuka Bog. 3 cards in hand, eh? Oh, this is great. Yes, let's just go Refurbished Familiar Express here. Yes, the counterspell is fine. It's good for my opponent, obviously, but I want to get that out of my opponent's hand anyway. So am I trying to play cute or am I just gonna go for the jugular? And I think I'm just gonna go. Again, I missed a point of damage because I could have done this last turn, but I wanted kind of to see what my opponent was going to have. I am going to go down to 10, meaning that I am behind my opponent on the race, but I do have quite a few resources here at my disposal. Okay, they are also doing the Troll of Khazad-dûm thing. It seems like they're basically playing the deck that I played on the channel a while back. Single card in hand, eh? Is your last card a snuff out? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. So my opponent's last card in hand needs to be snuff out for them to not die here. I guess it could also be like, I don't remember what it's called, Force Spike. But I don't feel like you play Force Spike here. Bounce Tooth, replay Tooth, trigger, save targets, always yield. Yes, save targets here. I guess I forgot to do that once. Yeah, got him. Turn 2, Striped Riverwinder, not good enough. We are 1 game win away from the 5-0. Oh boy. Dispels, come in. Tithing Blades, come in. Duress comes in. Probably don't want the Trinket Mage. The Banishing Neck is really, really, really good against the Troll and really bad against the Striped Riverwinder. I'm just gonna cut this. Probably cut like a Blood Fountain. My opponent is likely to be playing with a lot of hate for the graveyard. Okay, the Grim Bubble definitely goes. I'm actually gonna cut the Blood Fountain. Cut like 1 Fanatical Offering because in this deck, the Cryogen Relic is actually pretty good as well. Like against this deck, I mean. Sorry, I'm a little tired because I've played so much Magic today. The Cryogen Relic is decent in this deck because of Troll of Khazad-dûm. You can just sort of wreck your opponent's day. What does this do? This is... First of all, this is slow. Like, very slow. Opponent has mulligan to 6. I think this is a keep because I don't want to mulligan into Oblivion, especially hands that are functional. But this is very scary. If my opponent just goes like turn 2 creature, I'm in trouble here. Okay, the Troll of Khazad-dûm is the more manageable of those two. Okay, it is the turn 2 Troll. All right, Dispel's not gonna do anything for me right now, so it is Mistvault Bridge, and I can't, again, as I mentioned, I can't do anything. I'm going to take 12 before I start to get into real, like, dealing with this territory, I mean. There is also a Striped Riverwinder. Please no Exhume number 2. Jesus. Yeah, Dispel doesn't hit that. Okay, so, Bridge, this is probably just like Relic, take a redraw. Okay, Ornithopter is actually good. Frog, 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 Thopter, unleash the hand. So Thopter can chump the Riverwinder. I can take 6. Alternatively, I can just triple block the Riverwinder to try and kill it. I guess we're gonna see. If my opponent just moves to combat, I believe I'm just jumping and taking 6. If they play something pre-combat, our opponent is deep in the tank here. Okay, they are just moving to combat. Let's see it. All right. So it is, for me, it's just going to be jump here, take 6. Nile Spellbomb is whatever. Another Nile Spellbomb, sure. 1 card left in hand. Okay, so I have protection for... Ooh, this is actually nice. Okay, let's... Thoughtcast. Okay. Would love to Thoughtcast again, but I don't really think I am able to play land. And now I think I'm hoping my opponent's last card, or rather, they're going to have probably like 3 cards. You cycle a Nile Spellbomb here, right? Yeah. So I'm hoping they're not going to have removal. Okay, another land drop is good. Okay, we are coming in. So triple block the Riverwinder. Opponent is going to try to Steel Sabotage one of the Frogmites. Let's Retraction Helix that one. I get to bounce the Troll of Khazad-dûm. And then, is your last card a removal or another Steel Sabotage? No, if it was, you probably do something about it. Did we do it? Yes! Okay, okay. Now, opponent has 5 mana in play. It's not difficult for them to next turn go like 6 land, troll, deal with it. So let's go refurb. The refurb was obviously a great draw. See what our opponent is discarding here. Just an island. Makes sense. Can I find another refurb off the top? Pretty please. Opponent is just going to crack their spell bomb. Sure. Okay. Play my spell bomb. No counter magic is excellent. Swing. And I'm just gonna hold the Nile spell bomb now. Cute. So the trick here is that my opponent is doing the thing with the cycle on the stack, meaning that I can either pop my spell bomb here and then they just cycle the troll and they get the troll into play, or I just like let it happen and they get a striped Riverwinder. Unfortunately for them, I think this is not going to work because I'm going to exile their graveyard, not pay. Now they get to cycle the troll. This effect can resolve. You can decide the land you're getting. And then I'm going to Metallic Rebuke their Exhume. So that just straight up failed. Great news for us. Fanatical Offering is obviously the nuts. 2, sacrifice an artifact, draw 3. Okay. I will play the land here. Crack a map here, try to increase the clock. I don't want Tooth of Chisgoria. I already have one. And this is a 3-turn clock here. Attack, play Tooth, bump, and I have another spell bomb. I don't know about you guys. I'm feeling pretty confident. Abandon attachments. Yes, sir. Discarding a land. Yeah, it makes sense for my opponent to have Snacker in the deck, obviously. That is a good blocker right now. Maybe I should have thought about that. I think I'm just going to untap here. Whale is great. I'm fine attacking. If opponent wants to get rid of my refurbished, I'm fine with that. We are trading. Yep. Oh, I forgot to pump. Whoops. I am just going to crack this right now because I don't want to run the risk of them doing this on their turn where they get to, I don't know, like abandon attachments or brainstorm or whatever. Steelfin Whale. And actually the missing point of damage this turn is a big deal because now I only deal... Oh, no, never mind. No. I was going to say 9, 5, 6. No. It's okay. Well, drawing 3 is obviously great for our opponent. And a cycle? Okay. This means that a big monster like Hardcast is off the table. I'm just going to hold these in hand for whatever reason. Come on. Tap out for a monster. Do it for me. Yes. Did we do it? Did we get there? No! Opponent had a dispel. No. The 1 point of damage missing is gonna probably be the difference here. No. Because my opponent was supposed to be at 3. This sucks. Okay, attack. They need to block the Steelfin Whale. Bump the Frogmite. Opponent is down 2-1. I get to play a Thopter now. And then the Thopter can be the last point of damage. Oh no! Not Snacker. No. Okay, I need a bounce effect, a sacrifice effect, something. Okay. That is actually really good. Please no counter magic. Tithing Blade. Sick games, GG. Friends, we got him. Man, what a roller coaster. From getting absolutely crushed at the challenge to just 5-0ing with exact same 75, by the way. I didn't touch the thing. Oh, my Magic Online crashed. Okay. Hang on, let me restart and we'll go to our final thoughts. Okay, so I actually had to restart my computer and then I was halfway through just manually inputting the list on Moxfield because it wouldn't load, like M2GO wouldn't load. I think this was just too much of an impact on the very fabric of our reality or whatever, and the platform wasn't working anymore. So, jokes aside, is this deck good? Yes and no. Is this version better than the blue-red version that I have played so much? I believe this version has the potential to be better, but I don't think I'm there yet. I did 5-0 just now. I also think that the deck had a lot of situations where it didn't perform particularly well, and we got a little lucky. We saw that with the... Obviously, there is skill involved, yada yada. I'm not throwing myself under the bus, and I'm not saying that the deck is garbage, but I believe that there are things that we need to be more cognizant of in regards to the deck. And there is a lot to be said about pairings. Our pairings in the challenge were not great. Our pairings in the 5-0 were great for us. But I do think that there are things here that are very much worth experimenting with. So, The package of refurbished familiar against gardens is absolutely great, allowing you to just bounce your familiars back, replay them, do the whole thing. Excellent, absolutely great. Fanatical offering on Cryogen Relic is the nuts, but everybody knew that already. Grim Bauble and Blood Fountain are pretty good in the deck as well. And I believe that Duress, alongside some like more interactive options in the sideboard, are also pretty great. I think this deck is definitely like a card away, like a new card away from being really, really good. We would need to have like a whale effect or something, or like a Mirror and Spy effect that was also an artifact, which is not currently the case, but you know, who knows the future, right? I am very pleased with this. I worked really hard to get here. I tried many different configurations, and again, by all means, this is not the final one. I don't want to seem like, oh, I got here, that's it, goodbye, everybody. No, the deck has potential, but there is a lot of things that can still be experimented with, and we can always be trying new things. I'm very glad that I 5-0'd though. That is really reassuring for myself, and I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you had fun watching the games. I hope you had fun doing the whole during the whole thing. Have a great day. Take care of yourself. Experiment with this list. Please let me know what you guys think and what builds you would like to see next on in the channel. And yeah, that's gonna be it for me today. I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.